The fluorescent lights of Walker & Associates hummed overhead as I straightened my threadbare tie, hoping no one would notice it was the same one I'd worn all week. Noah Baker department's golden boy with his designer suits and imported shoes was holding court by the coffee machine, regaling our coworkers with tales of his latest vacation to the Maldives. "Hey, James," Noah's voice carried across the office. "Still bringing those sad little brown bag lunches? Man, you've got to live a little." I forced a smile, though my jaw clenched. At 32, I was the oldest junior analyst in the firm, and probably the only one still driving a 20-year-old Honda that spent more time in the shop than on the road. But they couldn't know where every penny of my salary had gone for the past 5 years. "Some of us have different priorities," I said quietly, sliding into my cubicle as Sarah from accounting shot me a sympathetic look. She was one of the few who never joined in the subtle jabs about my frugal lifestyle. The truth was, I could have afforded better clothes, fancy lunches, even a newer car. But every extra dollar I earned went straight into my real passion project I'd been working on since my father passed away. The same project that had finally paid off last month, though nobody at Walker & Associates knew it yet. I pulled up my resignation letter on the computer screen, reviewing it one final time. 2 weeks' notice, professionally worded, no hints of what was coming next. Let them think I was leaving for another mid-level position at a competing firm. The whispers had already started. Poor James probably couldn't hack it here, taking a step down to somewhere less prestigious. "Team meeting in 5, Amanda, our department head, announced as she strode past. Quarterly reviews and some announcements." My pulse quickened. This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for. The conference room filled quickly, designers and analysts claiming their usual spots around the mahogany table. I sat near the back, watching Noah adjust his Rolex while chatting with Taylor from HR. 5 years of these meetings, watching others get promoted while I stayed in my junior position, taking on extra projects for minimal pay increases, that all went to my secret venture. "Before we dive into the numbers," Amanda began, "I have an announcement. James has submitted his resignation, effective in 2 weeks." The room fell silent. A few heads turned my way, expressions mixing curiosity with what looked like pity. Noah smirked, leaning over to whisper something to Taylor that made her giggle behind her hand. "We'll be having a farewell gathering next Friday," Amanda continued. "I expect everyone to attend and show their appreciation for James's contributions to the team." The next week passed in a blur of project handoffs and exit interviews. The office dynamic had shifted. People either avoided me, like I had the plague, or suddenly wanted to know my plans. I kept my answers vague, watching their assumptions grow wilder with each passing day. "Heard you're going to work for your uncle's small business," Noah announced loudly during lunch hour. "Smart move, man. Sometimes you have to know your limitations." I focused on my sandwich, letting him fill the silence with his own conclusions. Sarah caught my eye from across the break room and rolled her eyes at Noah's commentary. She'd been trying to get me to open up about my plans all week, but I managed to keep my secret even from her. Little did they know, I had something planned for the farewell party that would change everything. Friday afternoon arrived with a mix of rain and autumn chill. I packed up my desk slowly, tucking away 5 years of memories into a single cardboard box. The photos of my dad and me in his old garage, the coding books I'd studied during lunch breaks, the business plan I'd kept hidden in my bottom drawer, all remnants of a life I was finally leaving behind. "Party starting in the parking lot," Amanda announced, poking her head into my cubicle. "We thought it would be nice to do something different. Plus, the weather's clearing up." I smiled, knowing exactly why they'd chosen the parking lot. It had become an office tradition to gather there for send-offs, comparing cars, and talking shop. Usually, it was to admire someone's new promotion-worthy vehicle. They probably thought they were being kind, not making me feel bad about my old Honda. "Just park in your usual spot," Noah called out as I headed for the elevator. "We'll set up the refreshments near the covered area." His tone was friendly enough, but I caught the subtle dig. My usual spot was in the far corner, where my beat-up car wouldn't spoil the view of the executive parking section. I took the elevator down alone, using those moments to steady my nerves. This wasn't about revenge or showing off, it was about proving something to myself. The past 5 years, every time they'd mocked my lifestyle or questioned my choices, I'd held on to my father's words. Success isn't about what you have, it's about what you build. And I had built something that had just sold for 8 figures to a major tech company. I walked out to the parking lot where a small crowd had already gathered. There was a table with cake and drinks, and someone had strung up a "Good Luck James" banner between 2 light poles. Sarah waved me over, holding out a cup of punch. "So, finally going to tell us what's next?" she asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. Actually, I said, checking my phone, it should be arriving any minute now. Noah sidled up, clapping me on the shoulder. Hey, where's the old Honda? Don't tell me it finally died on you. Sold it last week, I replied calmly. Figured it was time for a change. A low rumble echoed through the parking lot, growing louder by the second. Heads turned as a sleek electric blue vehicle rounded the corner of me father's dream car, reimagined and reborn. The prototype glided to a stop in front of the gathered crowd. My my new company's test driver stepped out and handed me the keys with a professional nod. The custom badge on the hood caught the afternoon sun. Phoenix Motors. No way, Noah breathed, his usual smugness evaporating. That's the new Phoenix EV everyone's been talking about. They're not even in production yet. Actually, they start production next month, I said, running my hand along the smooth contours my father and I had first sketched on napkins in his garage. We just got the final approvals last week. Amanda stepped forward, her eyes wide. We? James? What exactly have you been working on all these years? I pressed the key fob, and the butterfly doors rose silently into the air. This was my father's design originally, I explained, watching their faces as understanding slowly dawned. He was a master mechanic with a vision for sustainable luxury vehicles, but he never had the resources to develop it. When he passed away, I inherited his blueprints and his dream. Sarah's eyes lit up with recognition. The late nights, the brown bag lunches, all those programming courses you were taking. Every spare dollar went into development and patents. I nodded. I built the software architecture myself, worked with engineers on weekends. Last month, Vertex Motors acquired Phoenix for their luxury EV division. They're keeping me on as Chief Innovation Officer. Noah's face had turned an interesting shade of pale, but that acquisition was huge news. They paid. A lot, I finished simply. Turns out living below your means can pay off in unexpected ways. The crowd moved closer to the car, admiring its revolutionary design. It was everything my father had dreamed of, sleek, sustainable, and powerful. The interior featured his signature ergonomic layout, reimagined with cutting-edge technology. Want to see how it drives? I offered, gesturing to the passenger seat. To everyone's surprise, I turned to Sarah. You were the only one who never judged me for bringing lunch from home or wearing the same suits. Want to take a spin? She grinned, already moving toward the car. I knew you were up to something interesting, but this is beyond anything I imagined. As we pulled away from the parking lot, I caught a glimpse of Noah in the rearview mirror, still staring after us with his mouth slightly open. But strangely, I felt no satisfaction in his shockingly gratitude for the focus his mockery had given me. Your dad would be so proud, Sarah said softly as we cruised through the city streets. The car moved with barely a whisper, turning heads at every intersection. Tell me about him? I smiled, remembering countless hours in his garage. He was brilliant but humble, worked as a mechanic his whole life, but he was really an artist. He'd sketch designs on anything he could find, napkins, receipts, even my homework margins sometimes. This car, I patted the steering wheel, was his masterpiece. He called it the Phoenix because he believed in second chances, in rising from setbacks stronger than before. Like father, like son, Sarah observed. Though I have to ask why I stay at Walker and Associates all this time, you could have left years ago. I needed the steady income, and honestly, the doubters kept me motivated. Every smirk, every comment about my old Honda just made me work harder. When we returned to the parking lot, the atmosphere had shifted. The initial shock had worn off, replaced by genuine curiosity and respect. Even Noah approached with a different demeanor, professional interest overriding his usual arrogance. The regenerative braking system is revolutionary, he said, examining the specs on his phone. The automotive blogs are calling it a game changer. That was one of my dad's core innovations, I explained. I just updated it with modern materials and computing power. The entire car is a blend of his vision and current technology. Amanda cleared her throat. James, I feel like we owe you an apology. We made assumptions. I held up a hand. No apologies needed. Everyone here taught me something valuable, even if they didn't realize it. Success stories need conflict, it's what shapes them. The farewell party evolved into an impromptu showcase, with me giving small groups tours of the Phoenix's features. It was surreal explaining the technology I'd kept secret for so long, watching former critics transform into eager listeners. The interface is completely customizable, I demonstrated, showing how the dash display responded to gesture controls. We wanted it to feel intuitive, like the car becomes an extension of the driver's intentions. But how did you manage the development costs? Taylor from HR asked, genuinely curious now, even with saving every penny. I found investors who believed in the vision, I explained. Small contributions at first, then bigger ones as we hit our milestones. Every prototype failure taught us something new. That's why I never minded the overtime hair. It all funded another step forward. As the afternoon light began to fade, people started drifting away, many lingering to shake my hand or share a memory. The contrast between their previous attitudes and current respect was striking, but not as satisfying as I'd once imagined it would be. "You've given them something to think about," Sarah commented, helping me gather the last of my belongings from my desk. "Not just about judging people, but about following dreams." "Maybe," I said, picking up my father's old wrench, the one personal item I'd always kept on my desk. "But you know what's funny? I'm actually grateful for these years, for all of it. The struggle kept me focused, kept me humble." "So, what's next for the secret millionaire?" she teased, though her eyes were serious. "Billionaire, actually," I corrected quietly. "And next is honoring my dad's legacy properly." The following Monday, I walked into Vertex Motors headquarters wearing the same modest suit I'd worn at Walker and Associates. The security guard smiled as he handed me my Chief Innovation Officer badge, and I headed to my new office on the top floor. My first order of business wasn't about the car at all. I'd set up a scholarship foundation in my father's name aimed at supporting young innovators from working-class backgrounds. The program would provide not just funding, but mentorship and workspace, everything my father would have needed to bring his vision to life sooner. Opening my laptop, I found an email from Sarah. Saw the announcement about the Thomas Wright Scholarship Foundation. Noah's been sharing it all over LinkedIn, calling it inspirational. Funny how things change? Coffee soon? I smiled, remembering how she'd always seen past the shabby suits and old Honda. The press wanted to paint me as an overnight success story, but I knew better. In interviews, I emphasized the 5 years of grinding work, the countless failures, the support of my father's old mechanic friends who'd helped test early prototypes in their garages after hours. "But what made you keep going?" reporters would ask, looking for a soundbite. The truth was complicated. Yes, the mockery at work had fueled me, but so had my father's voice in my head, his belief that innovation shouldn't be limited to those with prestigious degrees or wealthy backgrounds. Every time I'd eaten a homemade lunch while others ordered sushi, I'd been investing in that belief. Now, watching the first production models roll off the line, I understood something my father had always known. True luxury isn't about showing off, it's about creating value. 1 month after leaving Walker & Associates, I drove the Phoenix back to my old neighborhood. The mechanic shops where I'd grown up were still there, their signs weathered but proud. I pulled into my father's old garage, now owned by his best friend, Mike. "Tommy would have loved this," Mike said, walking around the car with expert eyes. He'd been one of our first supporters, letting us use his equipment after hours in those early days. "Remember when you two would sit right there, drawing on any scrap of paper you could find?" He pointed to the worn wooden workbench, where I'd spent countless evenings watching my father sketch. Now, that same bench would become part of our first innovation lab for scholarship recipients. "We're converting this whole block," I told Mike. "Keeping the original buildings but updating them with modern equipment. A place where kids like me can build their dreams." The news about Phoenix Motor's success had spread through the neighborhood. Local kids pressed their faces against the garage windows, watching as we installed new equipment. I made sure every workstation had a stack of blank notebooks and good pencils just like the ones my father used to give me. Mr. Wright, a young girl, maybe 12, poked her head in one afternoon. "My mom says you used to live here. Is it true you built a car?" "My father and I designed it together," I corrected gently. "Want to see how it works?" Her eyes lit up as I showed her the engine bay. She asked intelligent questions about the electrical systems, reminding me of myself at that age. When she mentioned her own sketches hidden under her bed, I knew we'd found our first future scholarship recipient. Life has a way of coming full circle. 6 months after leaving Walker & Associates, I got an unexpected LinkedIn message from Noah Baker. His cousin's daughter had applied for our scholarship program, and he wanted to know if I'd look at her application personally. "She's brilliant, but comes from a tough background," he wrote. "Reminds me that we don't always see the potential in front of us. I learned that lesson the hard way." I remembered all his comments about my old Honda, the snide remarks about brown bag lunches, but I also remembered how each one had strengthened my resolve. I agreed to review the application, and when I saw her designs for a solar-powered urban transportation system, I knew she had the same fire my father had seen in me. "Your cousin's daughter got the scholarship," I wrote back. And Noah, thanks for teaching me persistence. The first Phoenix cars were hitting the streets now, each one carrying a small tribute to my father's signature etched discreetly into the engine housing. Reviews praised their innovative design and sustainable technology. But what made me proudest were the letters from owners. This car makes me feel like anything is possible, one wrote, like someone believed in building something extraordinary without compromising their values. Sarah, who'd since become our head of community outreach, brought me these letters daily. We'd turned the top floor of Phoenix Motors into a design studio where scholarship recipients could work alongside seasoned engineers. The sound of sketching, prototyping, and passionate discussion filled the space just like my father's garage all those years ago. Sometimes I still drive past Walker and Associates in the evening, when the office lights create a familiar glow against the darkening sky. The parking lot where I revealed the Phoenix has been renovated, but the memories remain vivid, the looks of surprise, the transformative moment when years of secret work finally came to light. Amanda reached out recently, asking if I'd speak at their annual innovation conference. Your story could inspire our younger employees, she said. Show them that success comes in many forms. I agreed, but not to prove a point. I wanted to talk about my father's philosophy that true innovation comes from solving real problems, not from impressing others. That sometimes the person in the shabby suit eating a homemade lunch might be building something revolutionary. The old Honda? I tracked it down and bought it back. It sits in our company museum now, next to the first Phoenix prototype. The scholarship program expanded faster than we expected. Within a year, we had innovation labs in 10 cities, each one housed in a converted garage or workshop. Every space maintained that essential character my father believed in: the smell of honest work, the sound of tools meeting metal, the sight of dreams taking shape on paper. Sarah and I visited each location, meeting young innovators who reminded me of my younger self. Some came from money, others from struggle, but they all shared that burning desire to build something meaningful. Your father would love this, Sarah said one evening as we watched a team of scholarship recipients testing their new hydrogen fuel cell design. Not just the cars or the technology, but how you've created a space for dreamers to thrive. Looking back, those years of mockery at Walker and Associates were a gift in disguise. They taught me that perceptions don't define reality, that true success isn't measured by the car you drive to work, but by the impact you leave behind. Noah and I occasionally meet for coffee now. The power dynamic has shifted, but that's not what matters. What matters is how he's changed, how he mentors young professionals at his firm, teaching them to look deeper than surface appearances. I keep your old desk photo in my office, he admitted during our last meeting. The one of you and your dad in his garage. It reminds me to question my assumptions about people. The photo he mentioned, my father in his oil-stained coveralls, me as a teenager holding his notebook of sketches, now hangs in every Phoenix Innovation Lab. Under each one, we've placed his favorite quote, "Dreams don't care what clothes you wear." The Phoenix has evolved beyond just a car company now. We're developing sustainable transportation solutions for communities that need them most, creating jobs in neighborhoods like the one where I grew up. Each project carries my father's core belief that innovation should serve everyone, not just those who can afford luxury. The old crew from Walker and Associates came to our latest product launch. They saw how their former junior analyst had transformed his father's dreams into reality. But more importantly, they saw the next generation of innovators were nurturing kids in secondhand clothes with first-rate ideas. Sarah, now my wife, still teases me about keeping my old packed lunches habit. Some things never change, she says, watching me prepare my sandwich each morning before heading to the office. She's right. Some things shouldn't change. Success hasn't altered my core values or my belief in humble beginnings. The worth of a person isn't in their wallet or their wardrobe, it's in their vision and their determination to make it real. Every morning, I park my Phoenix in the same spot my old Honda used to occupy at our headquarters. It's not the best spot, not the closest to the entrance, but it reminds me of where I came from and where I'm going. My father used to say that every great innovation starts with someone being underestimated. In the end, those who mocked my frugal lifestyle at Walker and Associates didn't just witness what I drove to my farewell party. They witnessed the power of quiet persistence, of believing in something bigger than yourself. And that's a lesson worth more than any car.